It is Sound Media Showcase time, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. I'm joined by Liam Wilson, who is Business Development Manager at Cathcart Associates, and is also the founder and host of How AI Built This. Thank you for coming on, Liam. For anyone that doesn't know about the show, please tell us all about it.
Thanks for having me. So the show is basically a sit-down interview with someone who works in the world of kind of data science or data analytics, chatting to them about their careers, how they got into kind of the world of data, what they're doing. It's a pretty it's a pretty hot topic. So it's just figuring out what they do, trying to kind of demystify some of it, but also just have a good chat with them. I was getting a little bit bored of reading the same kind of long form interviews with people on kind of industry press, whereas I knew there was more to their story. So yeah, I thought sitting down for an hour with someone would be a good way of getting it.
So I was going to ask you what your kind of motivation was behind starting the podcast. It sounds like you kind of touched on a little bit there in terms of wanting to do something that's a little bit different. But in terms of the business and obviously your job, how does it all kind of fit together?
Loosely, no, it doesn't really. So I really wanted to do it for ages. I had the idea and sat on it for way too long, and kind of taught myself out of it for ages. And I think I really enjoyed listening to podcasts of people where they were a bit more relaxed and they got an hour or more chat from the podcast host, and they kind of delved into either a subject or their background, and it was a much easier way of learning about them than trying to read it or kind of getting little 30-second clips on TV interviews or whatever. So yeah, I really liked the idea of doing that, and I thought there isn't really anyone doing that for the kind of people that I would be speaking to on a daily basis at work. So my job at Cathcart, we're a technology recruitment company, is to help companies find really good people for their team. So for the last 7 or 8 years, I've been helping companies find data staff. So I'd been speaking to these companies, I knew what they were doing, I knew the struggles they had when they were hiring, I knew the type of people that were getting into this industry. And as I said, it's a bit of a kind of, everyone's talking about AI, aren't they, and how it's going to take over the world, but I knew there was more to it than that. So I thought it would be a really good way of, I suppose, introducing me to new companies, and hopefully helping us to find them staff, but also just to tell the stories of some of our current clients, and some of the really cool things they're doing. A lot of the news you see around AI and machine learning is what Google are doing and Amazon are doing and all these huge big companies with loads of money. There wasn't really a platform when I started this for smaller companies or companies in the UK, either in Manchester or Edinburgh when I started it, but now kind of UK wide and further afield as well. So that was kind of the main motivation, and how it kind of ties in with my kind of quote unquote day job.
Makes sense. So, AI, data science, analytics, they're all quite big words. Is there a risk, do you think, of the show becoming a little bit too geeky, or is that firmly the audience that you're going after?
Quite a lot of people ask, what is the audience? And it's a really mixed bag. So, I'm not technical by any stretch of the imagination. I even struggled to set up my microphone to do this interview. So the way I'm coming from it is that it's like a human-to-human conversation, and I think people maybe have a misconception of people that work in technology generally, but specifically in data where I'm interviewing these people, that it's all about kind of sitting at a computer and it's all about coding away. There's a huge desire and need for people to really have interpersonal human skills, and that comes out in the podcast. Everyone I've spoke to has they're all different, they all come from different backgrounds, they've all got different personalities, but they're all super easy to talk to, and I think it helps when you listen to the show that it shows you that there's a bit more to it than just sitting at a laptop and doing some kind of weird and wonderful programming. Obviously that is involved, and most of data science is around maths and stats and large numbers, but we don't really get into the nitty gritty on the show. It's more about what are they doing and what impact does it have on either the business, or if they work in healthcare or whatever, like what impact is it having on that. So I think I think the right term would be like, it's like a high level overview, rather than getting really into the specifics, because that would be quite difficult, and I'm sure there is a desire for people to have that on a podcast, or maybe in a slightly different format, but it's not the angle I'd be coming from, so hopefully it wouldn't be too off-putting for people.
Okay, time for us to get your sound advice then. What is your one tip for other podcasters from your experiences?
Don't wait too long to start it, but I think the main thing that I have learned is when you're trying to get guests on, I think I was quite nervous at the start about messaging people saying, hey, I've got this podcast, like, you don't know who I am, but do you fancy being on it? The responses I've had have been overwhelmingly positive. Like, I've messaged people from huge companies that I never dreamed of getting a response, and even if they don't have the time to do it, they've been really nice about the idea and getting back to me. But on the whole, I've had kind of so many people who've been keen to be involved and give me their time. So I've been hugely appreciative of that. But if you're going to start one, I would just go for it and ask as many people as you can to be on it, no matter kind of what you think of their stature, if that makes sense. Okay,
and more recently you've started a spin-off show as well. Tell us about that.
So the spin-off show is how I built this, AYE, because it's a Scottish word, or a word used in Scotland, and it was more about the Cathcart Associates were started in Edinburgh. We helped Scottish companies first and foremost for the first kind of 7 or 8 years of our existence, and a lot of people, when I started our kind of Manchester division, didn't know that Scotland had an interesting technology kind of market, whereas in reality we punch well above our weight. So it's the same idea. I wanted to sit down with founders or senior people in Scottish tech businesses and tell their story a little bit, and kind of shout a little bit more about them. There's loads of companies doing some amazing stuff kind of all over the world, but based in Scotland. The plan was to shout about them. It's probably been a little bit trickier spinning it off because the AI one has done so well, and it's got a much broader appeal. Like the listenership for the AI one kind of spreads across, I mean, it was like 50 or 60 countries last time I checked, whereas because the Scottish one is based on Scottish tech, there is listeners from other places, but it's quite specific, which I'm okay with because that's the whole point. But the idea was the same: sit down with founders, get them kind of chatting, and work out why did they set up their business in Scotland, what do they like about the kind of talent we've got in the country, and what does the company do. It was basically the premise for that one.
Makes a lot of sense. Brill. All right. By the way, I very much translates into Yorkshire as well. It's a phrase that we're a big fan of. I'm used to saying up here, but actually with you it's down here, isn't it? So it's weird. All right, so long before sound media was ever a thing, when I was just starting out, self-employed, working with podcasters, that's when we first started working together at the beginning of your podcast journey as well. I'm not a fan of the phrase client, but technically you are my longest running client. We've worked together for quite a long time now. So how has it been for you?
Well, working with you and now Sound Media, really good. Like I said, I sat on this idea for, I actually can't remember when we first spoke, but I probably sat on it for 8 months plus. Like, I had this idea, I pretty much had the name. I actually started it by texting one of my mates because I was too scared to do it by myself. So I texted a mate saying, do you want to start a podcast about data? And he laughed and said, yeah, I'm sure we could do that. And then I kind of, the way that the idea transpired, it didn't really make sense. But that was kind of the seed was planted, but I just did nothing about it. And then eventually I think I saw one of your posts and I was like, I'm going to speak to this guy and see if it's even possible and what do I need to do. Because I started researching it, and you could go like how to start a podcast and you would imagine it'd be quite simple, but there's just loads of things that you don't appreciate or know, even just from like what microphone to get and how to best kind of, should you do it in person, should you do it remotely, so all these different things. So having even just that first chat with you kind of made it all seem a bit easier. And once I did that, it was pretty quick from our first chat to actually sitting down with the person that I wanted to interview for our first guest, because I had that planned out for a while. And it went really well. So once I started it, it was remarkably easy. But I'd imagine that's because you kind of knew what you were doing. So it meant all I had to do was focus on getting some guests, interview them, and worry about the rest later. So yeah, no, it's been remarkably easy, is what I'd taken away mostly from our relationship.
That's good. That's what we like. That's what we aim for. If anyone wants to find out more about the podcast, or maybe even put themselves forward as a guest, or just have a listen, what's the best way of them finding out more?
Well, apparently, according to the stats on the system that we use to post it, the most popular place for people to listen is Alexa. So you could just ask your smart speaker. I tried it didn't work, but I assume it's the Scottish accent. But you can find it anywhere, so Spotify, Apple, all the usual places. But also, if you use LinkedIn, that is where I post all the new episodes and all the kind of nice artwork that goes along with it. And it will be on the Cathcart Associates website, so www.cathcartassociates.com very soon. So yeah, it's pretty easy to find, I think.
Brill. If you do want to find out more about Sound Media, then head to wearesoundmedia.com, or you can find us on pretty much all the socials at We Are Sound Media. Liam, thank you. It's been a pleasure to chat, and well, the very best for the coming weeks, months, and years for the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.